Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're jumping into a really fascinating book, The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. And we're going to unpack this radical idea he has that being good with money has very little to do with how smart you are and almost everything to do with how you behave. So let's get into what that actually means.
Right here, this is the core idea for the whole thing. It basically suggests that a total genius who can't control their emotions can end up a financial disaster. Meanwhile, a regular person with no formal financial training can get incredibly wealthy just by mastering a few key behaviors.
And to really see this in action, there is no better way than to tell a story, a tale of two guys whose financial lives could not have ended up more different.
So on one hand, we have Ronald Read, a janitor and gas station attendant. On the other, you have Richard Fuscone, a Harvard-educated executive at Merrill Lynch. Now, based on credentials alone, you would bet on Fuscone to be the richer one. I mean, every single time, right? One guy had every possible advantage, and the other, well, seemingly had none.
But here's where the story gets wild. When Ronald Read passed away in 2014, this humble janitor left behind an $8 million fortune. Nobody saw it coming. All he did was quietly save what little money he had, invested in solid blue-chip stocks, and then he just waited for decades.
And on the flip side, what happened to our celebrated financial genius? He went completely broke. The guy lived in a mansion with 11 bathrooms and 2 swimming pools, but it all got wiped out in the 2008 financial crisis because he was leveraged to the hilt.
So you have to ask yourself, how is this even possible? This outcome just completely defies everything we're taught about success and money. If it's not about intelligence and education, what on earth is it about?
Well, it turns out the answer isn't in some complicated financial model or spreadsheet. Nope. The answer lies in the weird and often totally irrational wiring of our own brains. See, here's the thing Housel points out. No one is crazy. What seems like a bonkers financial decision to you might make perfect sense to me based on my life. Think about it. Someone who grew up in extreme poverty is going to think about risk and reward in a fundamentally different way than a banker's kid ever could. We're all just products of our own unique history. And just look at this. Your birth year alone can totally shape your view of money. If you were born in 1950, the stock market basically went nowhere when you were in your teens and 20s. But if you were born in 1970, you saw it go up 10 times over. Those two people are going to have completely different instincts about investing for the rest of their lives.
And that really gets to the heart of it, right? This quote from Voltaire says it all. The specific market conditions always change, but human nature, our greed, our fear, our biases, that stuff is constant. That's why being good with money is more of a soft skill. It's way more important to understand your own psychology than it is to memorize historical interest rates.
So, because we're all driven by these unique personal histories and not by some universal logic, a really fascinating split happens. It means the skills you need to build a fortune are completely different from the skills you need to keep it. In fact, a lot of the time, they're polar opposites.
Think about it. Getting rich is usually an offensive game. It's about taking risks, being optimistic, putting yourself out there. But the real secret weapon, the engine of it all, is compounding. And that requires letting your money work its magic for a long, long time.
I mean, let's take Warren Buffett. The guy is a legendary investor, no doubt, but he started investing when he was 10 years old. Think about that. If he had started at age 30 and retired at 60 with the exact same amazing returns, you probably would have never even heard of him. His skills investing, sure, but his real secret is time and survival. But keeping your money, that's a completely different ballgame. Staying rich is a defensive skill. It demands humility and, honestly, a little bit of paranoia. The whole game is about one thing, avoiding ruin. You have to survive long enough to let the odds work in your favor.
Jesse Livermore, this famous trader, made and lost several fortunes. He was a master at getting rich, but just terrible at staying rich. Why? Overconfidence. The very trait that helped him make all that money was the exact thing that blew him up in the end. It's the same trap Richard Fuscone fell into. They were amazing on offense, but had absolutely no defense.
Which brings us to this really sneaky psychological trap, the one that causes so many brilliant, successful people to crash and burn. It's this idea that maybe the single hardest financial skill is just getting the goalpost to stop moving. It's that endless appetite for more money, more status, more stuff. It makes people risk what they have and need for something they don't have and don't actually need.
There's this amazing story about the author Joseph Heller, who wrote Catch-22. Someone pointed out that a hedge fund billionaire made more money in a single day than Heller had made from his famous novel his entire life. And Heller's response was just brilliant. He said, "Yes, but I have something he will never have: enough."
And if you want to see extreme examples of this, look no further than guys like Rajat Gupta or Bernie Madoff. Both of them were already incredibly, unimaginably wealthy from their legitimate businesses, but it wasn't enough. And so they threw everything away, their reputation, their freedom, all because they had absolutely no sense of the word enough. Okay, so if the endless chase for more is a trap, then what's the actual point of building wealth? What is the best thing money can possibly buy?
Housel calls this the man in the car paradox, and it's brilliant. When you see someone driving a really nice Ferrari, you don't think, wow, that guy driving is so cool. No, what you think is, wow, if I had that car, people would think I'm cool. It's a funny little trick our minds play. We buy things to get admiration, but all we're really doing is making other people admire the thing.
And this is where we get to a really crucial distinction. Richness is obvious. It's the fancy car, the huge house. You can see it. But true wealth is what you don't see. It's the money that hasn't been spent. It's the financial assets in an account not yet turned into stuff. Wealth is the nice car not purchased.
Because that is what true wealth is. It's the unspent assets that give you the single greatest return money can offer: control over your own time. The ability to wake up one morning and say, I can do whatever I want today. That is the highest dividend money will ever pay.
And that's really the question I want to leave you with. Forget for a second what money can buy. Instead, ask yourself this: what would you actually do with your life if you had total and complete control over your time? Because figuring that out, well, that's the first real step to building a truly wealthy life.